Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. To all the future English teachers of Taiwan joining us today, I am absolutely thrilled to have you here. We're focusing on something today that is going to be incredibly important in your future elementary school classrooms. We're going to build a practical, hands-on toolkit to help you teach English pronunciation. We're drawing directly from Chapter 5 of the fantastic resource, Teaching ESL/EFL Listening and Speaking by Nation and Newton. My goal? To equip you with strategies you can walk right into a classroom and start using on day one.
So here's our roadmap. We'll start with the pronunciation challenge, then cover why pronunciation matters, and first language interference. After that, we'll build your toolkit with Step 1, hearing sounds, Step 2, producing sounds, and finally, correction and confidence.
Okay, let's dive right in. Here's a question you're probably going to ask yourself pretty often. Why do your young learners, who are honestly so bright and eager, completely stumble over certain English sounds and rhythms? It's a super common frustration for teachers, but I promise you, it is absolutely not because your students aren't trying hard enough.
Part 1. The Pronunciation Challenge. To solve this puzzle, we really have to look at the deep structural differences between your students' native language and English. Mandarin Chinese is what linguists call a syllable-timed language. That basically means every single syllable gets an equal interval of time, an equal length, and equal weight. But English, completely different. It's a stress-timed language. In English, the stressed syllables are spaced out, and the unstressed syllables, well, they kind of get squished together and become really short. When Taiwanese students apply their native Mandarin rhythm to English, they naturally want to give every English syllable equal weight. That's exactly why they can sometimes sound a bit like a machine gun when speaking English, just firing off every syllable at the exact same speed.
It's a classic mistake for speakers of Asian languages to make every single English syllable the exact same length. But listen to this, it's crucial. Weakening the unstressed syllables is just as important as hitting the stressed ones. If a student doesn't shorten those tiny unstressed spaces in between, the natural rhythm of English completely falls apart, and well, it gets really hard for people to understand them.
Moving on to Part 2, why pronunciation matters.
We all know pronunciation is about being understood, sure, but the science goes way deeper than just sounding clear. Think about a time you had to remember a phone number, and you just kept repeating it over and over in your head until you could type it in. That right there is your working memory using something called the phonological loop. Your brain silently repeats a word to hold on to it, and eventually that transfers into long-term memory. But here's the kicker. If a child doesn't have a stable, comfortable pronunciation of a brand new English word, their brain literally cannot hold it in that phonological loop.
So what does this all mean? It means better pronunciation directly equals a bigger vocabulary. Pronunciation is not just some bonus skill to make students sound native. No way. It is literally the foundational building block for remembering words. If they can't pronounce it comfortably, they just aren't going to remember it long term. Let's look at Part 3, First Language Interference. This is a massive concept for teachers in Taiwan because a student's first language acts like a really powerful filter. The research tells us that interference often happens at the physical level of articulation. Let's say you want your student to make a W sound, but they keep substituting a V sound because, well, it just feels more familiar to them. By mapping out the mechanics, like you see here, you can figure out exactly what's going wrong. You can see both sounds are voiced and both involve the bottom lip, but the W requires the top lip, while that error V uses the top teeth. As a teacher, mapping this out helps you diagnose exactly why a student is substituting a familiar native sound for a tricky English one, and that means you can give them really targeted physical advice.
Okay, I love this next part. Here is a fantastic, research-backed secret weapon from the text. When you are teaching a brand new, difficult sound, whatever you do, don't use words the student already knows. Practicing new sounds in familiar words can actually trigger their old native language habits and all the baggage of past mistakes. Instead, practice that new sound using complete nonsense words. Honestly, it totally removes the pressure and stops their brain from just defaulting back to old, incorrect habits.
All right, Part 4. Step 1. Hearing sounds.
You simply cannot expect a learner to produce a sound they can't first accurately hear. Chapter 5 gives us this incredibly clear three-step teaching procedure, which is basically a foolproof mental roadmap for your lesson plans. Step 1. Distinguish. Can they hear if two sounds are the same or different? Step 2. Identify. Can they pick out the specific target sound from a group? Step 3. Produce. And you absolutely must do them in this exact order.
So, what does this actually look like with elementary kids? Well, for distinguishing sounds, you could say pairs of words like pa and ba, and just have the whole class yell out same or different.
Next, to identify, have them physically move their hand every single time they hear the target sound while you read a list of words. Another really great one is picture pointing. Put a picture of a sheep on one side of the board and a ship on the other, and have them point to whichever one you say. Oh, and here's a brilliant pro tip. Just have your young learners close their eyes during these games. It removes all the visual distractions in the room and forces them to rely purely on their ears.
Now for Part 5, Step 2, Producing Sounds.
Once they can actually hear the difference, we have to help them physically produce it. The text explicitly warns us that just asking a student to repeat after me only works for a very short time. To physically construct unfamiliar English sounds, you gotta get hands-on. Bring small mirrors into the classroom. Let the kids actually watch their own tongue and lip placement and compare it to yours. Try slurring, where you have them slowly stretch their mouth from a sound they know into an unknown one, stopping halfway to find the new vowel. If their tongue is just in the wrong place, the text even suggests forcing, which sounds intense, but it just means having the student use a clean finger or a pencil to gently push their tongue back away from their teeth. And for rhythm, have them literally tap on their desks. A hard smack for a stressed syllable and a soft, quick tap for an unstressed one. It's so effective.
And as you're doing all this production practice, constantly remind your students to weaken those unstressed syllables. Fixing the overall stress-timed rhythm of English is honestly just as important as fixing individual consonant sounds. Teaching them to confidently rush through those spaces between stresses is the real secret to natural fluency. Finally, Part 6, Correction and Confidence. Teaching elementary students is incredibly psychological, right? The text quotes Stevick on this, saying, "The learners become anxious about making the sounds. If the teacher points out they are not saying something correctly, they may become very tense." You see, pronunciation is deeply tied to a child's personal identity. Especially for teenagers or older elementary students, the fear of looking foolish or sounding weird in front of their friends is huge. So how on earth do we correct them without completely crushing their spirit? Well, we use gentle correction. If a student mispronounces something, just calmly repeat the word correctly back to them without ever actually saying the word wrong. You can even playfully add extra stress or length to the part they missed. The goal is to keep the atmosphere non-evaluative and deeply supportive. You can also teach them private physical reminders. For instance, if a student always struggles with the th sound, have them cross their fingers under their desk before they speak as a little physical cue to self-monitor. It gives them control and totally protects their ego. And that wraps up our explainer for today. I want to leave you with this final question to think about. How will you use these tools to give your students a voice they are genuinely proud of? You've got the roadmap now. You understand the L1 filter, the magic of the phonological loop, and you have real physical techniques from using mirrors to tapping on desks. Take these strategies into your future Taiwanese classrooms, build up their accuracy, but most importantly, build their confidence. Thank you so much for joining me today, and happy teaching.